Okay, I make it 3 o'clock, or actually 2 minutes after 3. We have a quorum, so I'm going to call the remote meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. The first order of business is to inquire of the board and staff if any member of the board or any member of the city staff has any known conflict of interest with any item on the agenda.
No.
Carmichael, none.
Mr. Chairman, from staff, since we have 2 new board members since 2015, in 2015, in February and in March, I disclosed I own undeveloped property behind a mountain in the south side. And there's a resolution today dealing with some of the gas extension on the phase 1. My property is on the next phase, but I wanted to put it in the record again because we have a couple of new board members. I've owned that property since 1997, by the way.
All right, thank you. Anything else? As we go forward, remember to announce your name when you start speaking. Since we can't see you, we can't be sure of who it is. The next item of business is the acceptance of the agenda. A motion to approve.
Harry Johnson, motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Bencomo, second.
Thank you. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, calling the roll. Commissioner Carmichael?
Aye.
Commissioner Bencomo?
Yes.
Commissioner Baumgart has joined us as well.
Aye.
Commissioner Sorg?
Yes.
Okay. And the chair, yes. Am I missing any committee at this point?
Yeah, you didn't call on me, Johnson.
Oh, Dr. John.
And
Okay,
I vote aye.
thank you. The next item is public participation. Were there any comments returned from the public? No, there were none.
No.
Okay. Next item is the administrative report. Dr. Garcia?
Mr. Chairman, board members, I've asked staff to, we're going to have the customer service billing and receivables. Some of the items in the administrative report, we're going to summarize them a little bit, but I'd like to have Ms. Walsh expand on some of the items that she's dealing with, particularly the COVID-19 incident management portion. The board will be interested to see what we're doing. Also, I will defer to the board as to how much detail you want me to go on the consent decree portion.
This is William Little. It would be nice if we had a link to the consent decree in the Federal Register.
Mr. Chairman, we'll provide you a link. However, it is very massive and it's very hard to access. So we will have to provide you probably the main elements of the decree without all the attachments as a separate link. And that would be better for the board, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll do that after this meeting. With that, I'll have Mr. Provencio start with customer service and billing.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Jose Provencio, Deputy Director, Business Services. I'll give you a brief highlight on the activity in regard to utility billing assistance programs. We can progress to the third slide of PowerPoint.
Alma, I think we need to push a button.
Okay, thank you, Alma. The month of April shows the fairly subdued activity in regards to some of the more numerous transactions we try and help our customers with. I'll focus mainly on the LIHEAP, which continues to provide, it's a state program that continues to provide assistance for customers. You see the values in terms of 78 customers being assisted at a little over $18,000 in assistance from the state program. The other main program would be the CDP utility bill payment assistance, which would be the next slide. The brief overview here with respect to the initial allotment of the assistance program, we have fully exhausted the funds. We have, for the presentation for this month, I'll just show that the initial fiscal year 20 allotment was fully exhausted. We're into the next, the additional funds that were allocated or provided by City Council. And the next slide will show you that that assistance was at $125,000. And the next report I'll do for the coming month would be the inclusion of that additional assistance. And we're well on our way to assisting our customers in a very good manner. Stand by for any questions you may have.
Any questions? Hearing none, go ahead. Thank you.
We'll move. Next presentation will be a presentation of the third quarter budget review and for utilities. And going for the first summary, the overall revenue and expense summary for the third quarter. There's fairly consistent presentation and present progress for all activities and the major operating groups in utility. More detailed budget comparison and report will progress with the gas utility. Briefly, gas's budget projections and comparisons stack up pretty much and inconsistent with some of the activity with respect to the cost of gas, the commodity cost. Both the projected revenues and expenses were below the budget projections. Otherwise, the performance and in compliance with budget projections is in good order for gas utilities. It should be worth noting that the sales volumes at this point in the third quarter are fairly even with what was experienced in FY19. And with that, I'll move on to comparison with the water budget review. With respect to budget projections and to actuals, water budget is in line with expectations for the third quarter. Again, what's the main driver here is, just as a note, is that sales volumes again and production volumes were very in line with the previous fiscal year. And in terms of water, the performance of the budget, they're doing, water operations is doing very well. But we'll move on to the wastewater budget comparison. Wastewater is slightly below the projections, both revenue and expenses. Treatment of discharge water was a little bit less for the third quarter compared to the previous term in FY19. As well as other expenses that are not, that usually track the volume, treatment volume. But an overall view is good performance in terms of budget planning and projections. we go to the solid waste comparison to the budget. Solid waste, in terms of budget projections, are doing well. And I'd like to highlight here at this point is that even though revenues are above the budget projection, this is compared to budget. There was some good, you could use the phrase, there was some conservative projections for revenues in solid waste when the budget was prepared. So keep in mind, we have a rate review and a rate increase before the City Council for approval, but these are budget projections, not comparison in terms or evaluation for revenue requirements to continue funding the operation. Either way, expenses are a little bit below what was projected, but in good order in terms of overall budget performance. The next chart would be the shared services performance. The prime driver here is reflective of the work that we're still continuing in terms of filling vacancies. At this point, we're slightly below the projection for expenses for shared services. And as I wrap up this presentation, I just want to remind you that the complete document that was presented before the city manager's budget review is in your packet. And all that detail can be found with what was provided by the director's office. Stand by for any questions you may have.
Okay, comments or questions? I have two.
Yes.
The solid waste activities over the past month got sort of deranged by the closing of the green waste and then by the provision of additional grappler pickups. Has any of that caused any significant problems, or is it all just kind of in the noise?
Mr. Chairman, I'll answer that. I think Ms. Lawrence can jump in after I say a few things, but from the revenue point of view, positive or negative, we have not seen the impacts. We anticipate impacts in the next month or two for the fourth quarter because we had quite a few commercial customers cut down their service for obvious reasons. So we will anticipate some drop in projected revenues. There were disruptions to operations, but Ms. Lawrence and the staff adjusted very quickly to provide additional services, provide additional green grappler, and try to mitigate some of the closures. So I don't know if Robin wants to add any more. I think staffing-wise, we were fine, and we were able to like I said, mitigate the changes and adjust very quickly to that. But revenue-wise, we will see an impact, I predict.
Thank you.
Robin, do you want to add anything?
I actually did put together some statistics earlier today just on grappler pickups. Residential tonnage increased between February to April about 23% on tonnage. Green grappler and regular grappler pickups in the month of April increased about 75 and 90% over the previous month. So these guys and gals, our phone calls in the office doubled and we were short staffed. So they've all been working very, very, very hard. And they've been very busy, but they've all stepped up and did an awesome job.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
And Vice Chair Archuleta has joined. Go ahead.
I believe you have the counselor speak before I do it.
Yeah, I wanted to, can you repeat how much, the percentage you said that it increased? You cut out a little bit and I didn't catch it.
On all of them or anything in particular?
On the green grappler and the waste grappler.
Okay, so the regular grappler, the change in percentages of pickups between April and March increased 94%.
Wow.
So we went from 1,653 pickups in March to 3,199 pickups.
Oh my
On the green grappler, we increased from March to April 76%, going from 940 pickups in March to 1,658 pickups in April.
Wow, incredible. Thank you for those numbers.
Yes, ma'am.
If I may add, Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, on the residential side, additional tonnage is not additional revenue. I want to clarify that. It's fixed, so that was a good thing for our customers. But we, unlike commercial, we don't do based on we don't do the charges based on volumetric or number of pickups per week. So it's standard fixed cost. So I think there was a great benefit to customers during this period, but a lot of work for staff, and they need to be commended for adjusting very quickly to the situation.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Garcia. You're very much right on that. Absolutely. I think the staff has been incredible.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, going on.
I believe we have Ms. Walsh.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Delilah Walsh, Assistant Director. I'm going to give a brief HR report and then we'll talk a little bit more about our COVID response for LCU. We do see a peak in our vacancies in May, and this really has a lot to do with the office assistant numbers and vacancies we have open, as well as some recent retirements. We do have a few more retirements expected in June, which will bump up that number again. What's gone on is HR has not refreshed the office assistant candidate pool, and they don't plan to do so in the very near future simply because they haven't been able to have candidate testing. And so without that refreshed pool, we don't even have a pool of applicants to start the hiring process. We are making progress, but the current environment just has made hiring more difficult for us. I do want to say I do see a lot of progress and push from the deputy directors. I've seen their emails to HR, but HR too is dealing with a lot more than just LCU's hiring. They're pretty well overwhelmed right now with all the other employees and the issues that they're going through during COVID-19. So we're doing really well considering the environment, but it will impact our goals to complete vacancies by the end of the fiscal year. Next slide. This is also tied to our strategic business plan result for filling vacancies. The easy to fill positions have been filled, thus it skews the data here presented here. The hard to fill positions are still present an issue for us. And we actually spoke and had a good conversation with Suzanne to start up our media outreach regarding job opportunities at LCU and start that media campaign again. She actually had a really great idea to reach out to maybe the oil and gas communities that are being impacted now by the oil and gas production decline. And we may be able to find those specialty positions. So obviously we want to reach out to our community first and make sure we get as many Las Cruces employed as possible. But then if we do still need those specialty positions, we have that option of moving into those oil and gas production markets. Next slide. I wanted to emphasize, as I promised last month, how much we have hired. We've actually filled 32 positions since July 1st. So that just demonstrates to you that we are making progress, but we are a large organization, and with retirements and other issues that we're facing, we're going to see that churn on the turnover. And again, we are a highly specialized unit as well as our employees. I do want to share there is a new layer to the hiring process. The city manager has created a hiring review committee. As you know, the city is facing some potential shortfalls in GRT, which is going to affect the city's general fund. Therefore, there's a new hiring committee that will actually review all hiring requests and recommend approval or disapproval for each vacancy to move forward. We have talked to our assistant city manager regarding this process, and he understands that utilities is different. We are an enterprise fund. We will not be impacted by the GRT declines that the general fund will be facing. And they understand the fact that we've been at a 15% vacancy rate anyway and still need our processes to keep moving forward. That said, I do want to emphasize, and I'll talk about it a little bit more later in the COVID presentation, we've been at full operations through this entire event. So we've had to have all our people working to keep up and keep the utility running. I do want to let you know the apprentice and internship programs are delayed right now. I have met with Lydia in HR. She's our career development coordinator, and she is working with DACC and with LCPS. They have an ACES program, which is a trades program. And actually one of our intern applicants is coming out of the ACES program. The idea is we want to start training those in the ACES program in high school, so they choose to pursue those trade careers at Donna Ana Community College and roll into our future internship program. But again, everything is delayed based on the current situation. Next slide. This slide I'll go through briefly because I owe you a lot, but a lot of that is just dependent on the fact that we're managing the COVID situation within our utility. And really a lot of what I can do to move forward, I need the HR coordinator position, and I'm still waiting on a job description from the PAQ. And until I get that filled, there's a lot of initiatives that we have ready, but I can't pursue until I have that extra body. Next slide. So let's talk about a little bit about incident management for COVID-19 in LCU. As you know, we've already remitted our continuity of operations plan. Part of that plan was we still remain 100% functional. So we're not sending staff home, we're not running on half crews, we are running with full crews. Our lines of business have already developed their operational summaries as well as operational threat levels. We haven't reached any of those at this time. And I am providing weekly updates, what we call a sit rep, to the city manager and LCU board. So every Friday, I'll give you a little snapshot of where we are and what issues we have. What I do in that report also is identify any management decisions we may need or issues that we think are coming up. We're continued and complied with the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And I'm really excited. Our staff is doing a great job tracking our PPE to ensure adequate supply, as well as getting us ready for when we do resume normal operations. We still have that material available. The next slide. We are averaging about 8 associates per week that are out for either quarantine, extraordinary leave, or emergency paid sick leave. I know we will have some adjustments now that school is officially out for LCPS on May 21st. So the Families First Coronavirus Response Act allows employees extra medical leave or FMLA leave to deal with children whose school has been canceled. However, as of May 21st, that's no longer a issue because school is officially over. So we still know we're going to have to still work with our employees to work with childcare as youth programs slowly open up, as well as childcare centers. We did submit a return to work plan to the city manager's office, which was approved today. And we've got that posted on our utility SharePoint site for employees. And I know the ACM has posted it on the city manager website. And what this does is simply outlines how we're going to return to work while being compliant with the governor's orders. So the Department of Health orders, as they're modified, we've modified our plan. I don't know if you attended last week's press conference, but we were initially going to open up to 50% capacity for offices. That was lowered to 25% capacity starting Saturday. And so we've adjusted our plan, meaning we're pretty much going to still operate at our current capacity. That essentially to us, it translates to maybe one employer in the entire administration building can come back to work. So we're simply going to be where we are right now. Part of that plan also includes what we're going to do for increased sanitization, how we're going to handle common areas, what our gathering levels are going to be. And that was shared with all our LCU associates this morning. So once it was approved by city manager, we put that in their hands to start planning for our return to work and hopefully some normalization in the fall. Our associates are contacted. I send at least 1 or 2 emails a week to all of our associates, just giving them informational updates, resources that may be available through the city, changes that are coming that may impact them and their families. And we're really trying to keep them in the know. As you all know, what you imagine is always much more worse than reality. And we want to make sure we keep everybody in reality. We did have one confirmed case in one of our lines of business at the end of April. All the employees who were around that individual were tested and our isolation procedures were reinforced. Essentially what happened is after talking to a supervisor, I did talk to the employee myself. He was non-symptomatic. He and his wife were doing fine. She actually tested negative, so that was good news. He had just gone to an essential employee testing event and was called back and told he was positive. So what I did is just interviewed him on how many people he was in close contact with, what were the common areas he visited, and essentially we were able to pretty much limit, and our distancing practices and our sanitization practices really proved effective in this case because we've only had that one positive case, and that was 3 weeks ago. And so what we're doing has worked in the sense that we're doing the truck to truck reporting, their personal vehicle to their work vehicle reporting. So they're not touching the time clock or shared surfaces like doorknobs. Sanitization of all our equipment, our trucks, our shared areas. So those practices really did help and we're able to keep our staff healthy. So that was good news. He is doing great. I was able to talk to him a few times during his quarantine and was feeling great and ready to come back to work as soon as he gets released. So that was good news. We are continuing our increased sanitization of common areas. Anybody who's in the building, I think we all smell like antiseptic constantly. And I'm sure that's true at City Hall. But it is, again, it's important. And we saw proof of that when we had a positive test. One of the issues that we're facing now, and it will be, I think I put it in last week's sit rep, I know I'm going to have it in this week's sit rep, is we've identified 84 employees today who've already accrued more than 200 hours of annual leave. So according to city policy, you can only carry over 240 hours in the calendar year. We already have 60 people who are at 240 hours. The reason this is important is because we haven't been able to approve vacation leave. One, most people don't want to leave because they can't go anywhere or they're staying home with kids. But in addition to that, because we've continued to work, our employees are not using the extraordinary leave benefit that other departments have seen. So for example, I like to pick on the libraries because it's an easy one. It has to close down. You have to send your employees home. They're obviously staying at home with that paid leave where ours are still working. So in addition to these 240 hours they already have, many of our employees are going to be entitled to another 15 days of leave. The challenge that presents for us is that by the time the travel orders and restrictions are lifted, which we anticipate won't happen until at least July or August, we only have about 5 months to grant vacation requests. So our staff, our leadership will be getting together to come up with strategies and maybe set a priority SOP on who gets to take off first. And then of course we will be asking city management to allow our associates to carry over more than the 240 hours. And that request is allowable under policy. So we anticipate that's going to happen. I know when I was in Socorro, I pretty much shut down during fall because all my road department went hunting, but we can't do that here. We have to keep our utility going. One of the other issues we're facing is the union has requested a pay differential for the fact that they are still reporting while much of the city is not. And we've just advised them that really is a management decision because that's not just about utilities. You have public safety officers, you have police officers, firefighters, several people in the city of Las Cruces that are still reporting. We have to keep our city running. And so that is a management decision. And we've let them know that's something they have to address with HR and with city management. And what we have let them know is that we've identified funds through salary savings. And I've actually listed that in our sit reps also. So should something be proposed or implemented, we support it. And we've already identified the financial means to support it. So we're okay on that side. As the stay-at-home order is extended, we're having some equity issues again for the extraordinary leave because a lot of departments are still sending half crews home with pay and they've already exceeded the 15 days of pay in extraordinary leave, but they're still receiving the benefit. So they've exceeded the benefit as outlined by the policy, the 15 days, but they're still getting paid. So of course, again, our staff is coming back and saying, hey, again, we're not equitable. We still have to work. We're here doing what we need to do. And we need a balance there. So again, it's just in our sit rep. That's going to be a management decision. That's not something the utility can decide. But I'll give them, even if they bring it up as an issue, every one of our staff members is doing whatever they can to make sure that we're covered in every aspect of the utility. Do you have any questions? That's it for me on the report.
Mr. Carmichael, I have a comment and a question. Comment going back to your information on the hiring review committee. And I understand what you said about, you know, understanding the uniqueness of the requirements of the utility department. But that would appear to me to be just another administrative step in the process of hiring that I think we need to be very conscious of. We're trying to go the other direction and shorten that loop and have objectives accordingly. I don't know how often this review committee plans to meet, but I think we've got to be very careful about that, and any comments you have about that, I would appreciate. The question then deals with what you were talking about on the extraordinary, the extra leave, the carryover, the extraordinary leave, 15-day, and the pay differential. That's been on the situation report, and it seems to me like it's been discussed several times over the last, what, 2 months maybe? Mm-hmm. I guess my question is, when do we expect a resolution from management on those subjects that is going to have the biggest impact on the utility department? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Carmichael. Regarding the hiring committee, I think what's going to happen thus far, the OAS is the only one that we've been impacted for, and most of our new position or most of our open positions are already in the pipeline. ACM Dallahan did assure us, he's one of the members of the committee, that when we push through utilities that he is going to be, you know, he understands our needs and the fact that we are not GRT dependent. So it helps that we have somebody, as well as Leanne. Leanne Demouche is our budget officer, but she also worked for the utility. And I think they have a pretty good handle on pushing our position requests through. However, you're correct, it is another administrative layer which causes more delay in what we have to wait for moving forward, just having that checkbox. Move.
Delilah, this is David Maestas, interim city manager. If you don't mind, I can help address that.
Oh, please.
You bet. I had my hand raised. I don't know who the host is, and I was hoping they would see my hand raised there. But anyways, I'll jump in on that. Actually, all of the utility positions that did have vacancies or did have position reviews taking place have all been approved. Nothing's been held back on those, so there is no delay on that. The way the process works is a department can begin working on their hiring process. They can put in what we call a requisition, and that's the first step. So that lets HR know that you want to fill a position. We even actually start to look at and review these positions even before we get to that place. HR has looked at all the vacancies, put a list together, and we started analyzing those as part of the committee, even before the department has gotten started in some instances. So we have already identified which positions are going to be put on hold and which will move forward. That takes place before the process has even started. So there isn't any administrative delay by having this step in place. All we're doing is trying to assure that after we find out what the deficiencies might be in the GRT or in funding and revenue sources, that we have availability to talk about which positions might allow us savings to help combat those revenue shortfalls that we have. I hope that helps answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could address Commissioner Carmichael's second question. Regarding the differential pay as well as the equality issues, I think a lot of the delay is simply a budget consideration, because whatever management decides, yes, the utility has salary savings, but as David just mentioned, he has to deal with the GRT revenue shortfalls for the entire city. And they're going to have a really good measurement of how any policy would impact the budget. And I think that's most of the delay. And David, you could correct me if that's wrong.
You bet. Thank you, Delilah. I appreciate you getting going on that part too. The other thing that we have to look at is we have to look at what's allowed by policy and by code. Let's say we were to enact a differential pay right now and add it to a person's base salary. Well, once the public health emergency is over and done with, do we go back to that person and tell them we're going to deduct your base salary now and take you back to the point to where you were before the public health emergency? Most employees aren't really going to like to see that happen, obviously. But if we leave it at their base salary, well, then they're going to continue to receive this differential pay for the rest of their career with the city, but we're no longer in the public health emergency. So unfortunately, like a lot of things, we'd like to see them move a little quicker, but there are a lot of rules and regulations that we have to make sure that we're following. The other thing that we can't do is we can't have back pay in place. So we need to look at how we can, we have the potential to offer a differential, but we have to make sure that all the rules are met. We are getting pretty close. We have identified a program that we might have available, a process that we might be able to do. So we hope to have a final decision coming forward shortly. But ultimately, as Delilah pointed out, based on the work that we do and the community that we have in place and the services that we have to provide, especially to our vulnerable populations, we have to work, and that's what we're doing. So we'll continue to do that to the best of our abilities. And if we can compensate, we will. That's what we want to do. That's our primary focus. But we need to make sure that we do that within regulations. Thank you.
Okay, now Commissioner Bencomo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks so much for that info, Delilah. I just have a couple questions. Are utility staff, some of these essential workers on the field, are you having folks take advantage of the testing that's available?
Yeah, Chair Little, Commissioner Bencomo, yes, absolutely. And that's part of our weekly notifications. We send them the number to make the appointments at Department of Health. I'm actually working with DOH right now and seeing if we can set up anything at the utility, because it's really difficult for our staff to just fit in within those regular or limited hours. So I haven't heard back yet, but it is something that we're pursuing in order to comply with the governor's directive to get everybody tested.
That's really great. I'm glad you reached out to them for that. I'm definitely happy to bring that up. We have a special council meeting tomorrow, and I think there's some DOH representatives, and I'm happy to bring that up as well.
That'd be great.
And then I did make a note here about the 84 employees. I think it's important. I don't know if David has a note on that, but I do think it's important that we come up with some policies regarding that as we move out of the fiscal year and out of staying at home orders, and just to ensure that it's just and fair that people get to keep as many of their hours as possible.
I'm gonna zoom.
Absolutely, and Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bencomo, I know city policy does allow for that. Of course, David's got a lot of decisions to make.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bencomo, yes, we definitely want to make sure that we make it as fair and equitable as possible. As Delilah mentioned, I do have the luxury to be able to waive those maximum allowable limits that we have, and I will definitely be looking at how we can do that. Again, making sure that we're fair and equitable to the people that did have time off and to those who didn't and were still working, and also making sure that we can cover the liability and the risk associated with that. The more hours that you carry over, obviously the bigger liability that the city has from a financial standpoint, but we want to make sure that we can be as fair and equitable as possible. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Yeah, thank you, David. I really appreciate that. I mean, I was just talking to my own staff about this the other day about, like, why would we want to take time off right now? We're stuck at home. So that just doesn't seem great. And then lastly, I wanted to ask about, have you been getting a lot of sort of concerns from staff who have small children? And I know obviously this is an issue regardless, right? Because school would be out anyway, but there are significantly less services out there for, right, like Boys and Girls Club, like some things will just not be open that regularly are to help working parents with their children. And you are the biggest department, so have you been hearing a lot of concerns regarding that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bencomo, what's interesting is because we've been flexible with our scheduling as well as rotating crews, we're not denying time off. I want to make sure that's expressed. So if somebody needs time off, we're still granting it. We're just making sure we don't have 10 people in the same section taking time off. But a lot of our associates have already made that balance with their families and worked with their supervisors. And really the key to all this is the flexibility. And our supervisors have been great to provide that flexibility. We've already given them the authorization to do shift differentials. So if you want to do a shift from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m., that's absolutely an option. And we've left that up to our supervisors. So we haven't seen too much of a push or too much of a concern that's been expressed simply because we've allowed the flexibility. We do have a few associates who are caring for either aging parents or very young children, and we're having to work with them because they have to be out. They don't have options. I'll share an example. We have one associate who is taking extraordinary leave because his parents have to work extra jobs in order to make up income from a layoff, and there's nobody to watch the baby brother at home. And so we've had to work with him and let him know, yes, you can have off, and we'll do that. But for the most part, our associates have been able to make that balance through flexibility. And we're just gonna have to work on the ones that need to be home simply because, and that's why we've identified those operational threat levels. So we know at what point do we have to combine crews, at what point do we have to change some of our service demands. And so far we're not there yet, which has been, a blessing in itself. But thus far, we haven't seen too much of an impact.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. That gives some perspective for sure. I appreciate that, Delilah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And what's next?
Can you hear me now? Mr. Chairman, no changes on Texville, New Mexico, but I'd like to just bring up the consent decree was filed on April 16th. The comment period is April 22nd to May 22nd. We will be providing a link to the board, like I mentioned earlier, so that you can peruse the document if you want to. But basically, this settlement is with the federal agencies. It has nothing to do with a couple of the remaining private businesses. But basically, it is posted again from April 22nd to May 22nd. It does resolve all of the litigation with the National Guard, basically, and gets EPA off of our back. And also, DOJ is also a signatory to the particular settlement. Next slide, Alma, 15. Basically, this settlement makes us fully responsible for the cleanup. It does resolve all of the past costs, approximately $9 million. That was the original number. We've agreed to perform the remedial action, which is the cleanup, in accordance to the statement of work. I had reported to the board that the statement of work, which is the technical part of the document, was the easy part to agree with EPA and the Department of Justice. The hard part was the legal aspects in the consent decree. Basically, the financial terms, can you go up, Alma, please don't change it. The financial terms have us, we reduced the past costs from $9 million to $2 million. There's a split on all the costs, including this past cost, between the Joint Superfund project, which is the city and county, of 57%, and the National Guard, 43%. So that split is throughout. So the federal defendants will also pay 43% of past costs. The past costs that qualify are about 4.8 million. Unfortunately, a lot of the legal fees don't qualify. So the only past costs are about 4.88 million. So that gets us about $2.1 million back. The federal defendants, mainly the federal guard, will pay also 43% towards future costs, which are estimated at about 8.5 million remaining, and that's another 3.6 million that we're getting back. Next slide. So basically, in addition to that, we got what is called a 8% cash out premium. In other words, they're giving us 8% of those future costs, an additional 292,000. That is, the National Guard is giving that because they want out of this for the future. So they gave us an incremental increase of 8% on those costs. We will have future response costs of about $144,000 annually, and that's included in those $8.5 million of costs. That's all inclusive. So there's going to be some annual costs that are up to $144,000. That is for EPA to review the documents, the reports, show up here to audit the system, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be some interim response costs that are also split 5743. Next slide. And the final slide really summarizes this, but basically we will get from the feds approximately $6.39 million. And we will have to pay out initially 1.26 out of that. And that's going to be in June. It's an initial payment out. So we will start our future in terms of the cleanup with approximately $4.3 million. We think it's a good solution. There is the funding will have to come from the environmental grocery receipts tax from city and county. If you think about it, we need an additional, if we do all of the capital costs that are projected in those 8.4 million, you would have over a 10-year period an additional $800,000 a year or $400,000 each city and county. So it's not, it is a good deal. It's not perfect, but it brings up a lot of money up front, and it takes all of the past costs, or most of the past costs, 7 million of it, that EPA wanted to collect really badly. So I think our attorneys that are paid by the insurance company did an excellent job, and we worked very hard to get some settlement that we could live with. So as we move forward, and after you all review the document, when we provide you a link, you may have more questions, and I can address those at the next board meeting. So that's it for now, and we're very glad that we're here. There's 2 other private companies that are named, that the city and county sued them to bring them into this litigation. There's 2 properties remaining. We think there's some liability there. We don't know what those settlements, hopefully there will be settlements and we will not go to trial. But so we may bring additional funds. It's not going to be a large amount of money. They're local businesses, but there's evidence that there was pollution in their properties as well. So that is still to come. It's still in court, and we don't have any details on that. By the way, that part of the lawsuit still stay till about the next week or so, and then we will resume the dealings with those private companies. So with that, I'll be open for questions.
Thank you. Questions?
This is Carmichael. Dr. Garcia, can you give an example of what some of the past and future EPA costs were, what that was for?
The past, Mr. Chairman, the future costs are those $144,000 a year that I mentioned.
Right.
That's a known quantity, and it's an up to that amount. So we will have details provided to us on that. The $9 million cost goes back to approximately 2001. In 96, we encountered the pollution, and it was the Environment Department involved. EPA came in on or about late 2000, 2001. So they accumulated all those past costs, all the engineering, all of the trips, all of the monitoring wells, and all of the staff time. They documented every single piece of cost from day one for about 20 years, and we are at $9 million. So it was critical for us to negotiate that out.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
That's, well, I don't know. like I say, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer questions as we move forward after you review the document. There may be more questions.
Okay. It takes a peculiar mindset to want to read the Federal Register. So we'll see. Any other questions now?
We can go to the next item, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Get my agenda here. So, Mr. Chairman, you requested, we have 3 board candidates. You requested, since we have 3 candidates that meet the qualifications, you wanted to have board discussion. We put it in the administrative report. We could have had this on board discussion, but it is up to you. You all have access to 3 resumes of 3 citizens that are up, that would fill the Mr. Baumgart's position. The board can only recommend. We would send a memo to the mayor, who appoints with advice and consent of the city council. So with that, I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. All the board members here have had an opportunity to look at the qualifications of the 3 volunteers. And I will suggest that Mr. Hardy is a suitable candidate to recommend, but I'm looking forward to hearing from the other board members as to their review of those qualifications of those 3 people. Silence.
This is Ed Archuleta.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I reviewed all 3, and I think all 3 are good candidates. When you look at our business, our business is primarily in the engineering and financial business, primarily. Those are the 2 strong areas based on budgets, just based on emphasis, based on policy. Where we need help is in engineering and in finance. So of the 3, I thought Mr. Hardy was the one that probably was the strongest in that particular area and would be a good fit.
Okay. Any other comments from any of the other board members? Okay, without objection then from the board, I will ask the Utilities Department to recommend Harry Hardy as a candidate for the mayor to appoint.
Okay. Okay.
Now we're into projects.
Yes, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. This is Carl Clark, Deputy Director, Environmental and Technical Support. I have the 3 projects listed there for you. I'm going to be brief with these since we have limited access to each other. So the 3 projects: Sandhill Sewer Interceptor Phase 1, the pre-1965 Foothills Landfill excavation, and the Talavera 8-inch steel high-pressure gas extension. I'm not sure if Alma's there to go to the next slide. So the Sandhill Sewer Interceptor Phase 1, I've been letting the board know the progress of this project. The interceptor line is completely installed. There was a final inspection held a week or 2 ago. There are some punch list items. The remaining work to be done is the seeding of the disturbed areas, which we actually increased for this project, and then the punch list items that the contractor has to do. I believe I was told by my staff that they'll begin on this project next week or so after the seeding subcontractor comes in. Next slide. I'll just skip past this and go on to the next project. The pre-1965 Foothills Landfill excavation. This project is progressing smoothly. We actually are in suspension right now. We actually shifted over and we got approval from the Environment Department to use what they call a flip screen. This flip screen is tied to one of the front end loaders. The reason we brought this in is because we moved over 1,000 trucks already out at that location, and we were pretty heavy on those trucks going through the scales across the South Central Solid Waste. And so we're paying for those tipping fees. So we don't like paying the tipping fees for mostly sand, because that's what we're finding a lot of is a limited amount of waste, but a lot of sand. So we went over to this flip screen and we're screening it down now. We're initial estimates, we'll know probably by Friday what the weights on each truck are going to be, but we're talking about 10% of the weight that we were hauling across their scales. So we don't have a problem with that. We like to pay them for trash only and not dirt. As I said, it's in suspension right now. We're screening out materials, and really the suspension is in regards to the hauling efforts. We're negotiating with the hauler right now because we are going to cut down the number of trucks with the limited amount of trash that we're coming up with out there at that location. Next slide, please. Since we are in suspension, it may affect the schedule that you see right on the screen right now, but we hope it doesn't extend the project too far. But we think with this new change, we're going to save a large amount of the budget, and we're going to continue forward to clean this up. Okay. Next slide, please. So the Talavera 8-inch high pressure gas extension is the next project. That project is complete with the assistance of gas. And they've already completed the reg station out at that location, and they are actually moving on to tying in customers. I believe we may have another slide. Well, we'll just to this slide. Basically, they've energized the low pressure gas line that's on Dripping Springs Road itself. That's full of low pressure gas right now going through the reg station, and it's available for customers. They've actually started purging the line that we installed, which was the very first project on Soledad Canyon. That's being purged, and it's purged out to where the intersection is, where the fire station is. I don't know if you all are familiar with Talavera area, but there's a 90-degree bend on Soledad, and they're purged out to there. And they've actually started running gas line into Talavera Avenue, which is another street with a lot of new homes in there. And we have stub outs right to the lot locations. The customer is actually going to be coming in, paying for his meter, and then he'll be tied into the gas line. So we have 3 large homes that are coming online quickly on this project. Plus we've identified some other homes that are on stub outs on Soledad that once we purge that section, those people will be contacted and they'll have gas available to their house. So any questions in regards to this project? That's all I have for the project's update.
Okay, any questions?
We're ready for resolutions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, go ahead with the resolution. First resolution is Resolution 19-20-124, a resolution awarding a construction contract for the Talavera Low Pressure Gas Distribution Network, Phase 3A, project number 19-20-124, to Smithco Construction, Inc. of Caballo, New Mexico, for a total contract amount of $3,060,000. $433.60.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second,
Okay, that was Sorg and who?
Bumgarn.
Thank you. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may start, we have 2 presentations today on this item. I wanted Joe Provencio, who was involved with myself and others in some of the history of why we are in that area. I think it's important to, there's been lots of questions and some comments made as to how we got there in behind a mountain. And I think for the board members that were not here back then and counselors, it would be good to explain how the city gas utility became a regional gas utility and replaced some of the service territory of Rio Grande Natural Gas Association. So I will have Joe start, and then Carl, and then I can answer any other historical questions on this matter. With that, Joe, can you start, please?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Sword, go ahead.
just for information, I was on the Rio Grande Natural Gas Association Board of Directors when it dissolved.
Thank you.
Correct. That's you was a new counselor, I believe.
Oh, okay. Commissioners, Vencio, Deputy Director of Business Services, walk you through the evolution, the inception and the evolution of the Rio Grande Natural Gas Association that began in 1969. Key point here, it was a nonprofit and intercommunity natural gas association. Co-owners were the Village of Hatch, and of course the city of Las Cruces. There were several formalization types of resolutions that were passed in 2005 that affirmed that the two owners owned the assets jointly underneath the shares. And in June 2008, the owners appointed a task force to start looking at the recommended reorganization alternatives for the association. Moving to the next slide would provide the ultimate timeline or the event in July of 2010 that established finally reorganized the gas association and firmly defined the requirements, responsibilities, and obligations for natural gas service in its service area with the dissolution or the reorganization of the Rio Grande Association. And the three main points there is that the city acquired the association's customers that were within city limits, and it expanded the natural gas to be for the city to be the provider for the newly annexed East Mesa and West Mesa areas. Now, these are areas of high potential growth and economic activity and economic development. And these were the two areas that were accorded to the city. And the final one, which established the footprint beyond the city limits, was the extraterritorial zone in and around the existing city limits. So these actions firmly established the requirements in terms of a service area, which is presented in slide 28. You visually see what the footprint of the obligation to serve and provide natural gas was for the city, and of course the responsibility handed off to the utilities department. With that, I'll hand it off to Carl to continue the presentation.
Okay, Chairman, Commissioners, this is Carl Clark once again, Deputy Director, Environmental Technical Support. So, just a little history. We got to this point, number one, back in March of 2015. We had many calls from that area asking when the city was going to begin serving that area. Then we finally got the call from Zia Gas that said, hey, do you guys want to serve that area? If not, we'd love to take it over. So at that time, we moved forward and we said, no, we want to serve this area. And so we began surveying that area. We sent out letters to all the 960 parcels out there. And you've seen this map before. The green are the parcels that said, yes, they want gas, or they're interested. The parcels in red said, no, not interested. And then the yellow are the not checked. Somehow we got stuff back and we couldn't make contact with them. So it was established that because of the number of yeses, we wanted to move forward. So we moved forward quickly, and we, as you recall, the county moved on their new roadway down Soledad Canyon, and so we jumped ahead and we put in the low pressure gas so that way we didn't have to disturb the pavement. And then we moved on to this last project that I just briefed you on, which was the high pressure gas line extension. And then now we get into where we're at now. But basically, it was we got into this because of the request for gas service out there. And next slide, please. I do want to let the board know that there is a high pressure natural gas master plan that was completed in 2013 by Bohannon Houston. The board has seen this, or at least the board that was here at that time has seen this master plan. Next slide, please. In that master plan that we talk about our future gas, high pressure gas lines. Those high pressure gas lines, it's a little difficult to see, but they're the green lines there. And you can see that they're covering mostly the east side of the city. And there's a 12-inch gas line that runs north-south. That 12-inch gas line is the one that this current gas line can tie into. So you can see on the lower portion, the green line that goes east-west. That's the line we built. It's part of the high pressure gas master plan. We were going to build that line anyways as part of our future growth and demand. One thing I do want to point out is that loop is needed for that 12-inch high pressure gas line to ensure that we can maintain service. As you see up on the very upper right, we have a long red dash gas line. That's to NASA. They are a big user of our system. And so we need some way of having a second support or a redundancy in our system to ensure we can deliver to NASA. They have a lot of projects. They are a big employer in the city. And they recently, and you're aware that they want to expand the gas line size. They're actually asking for more BTUs and more demand on our system. So we're preparing and progressing towards that. We are working on a new master plan. I'll be selecting a consultant here soon. Actually, it's multiple consultants to update this plan and to show more of its relation to elevate Las Cruces. So that's what I want to let you know in regards to the high pressure site. So it was going to be completed anyways, not only because of Talavera, but because of future growth and line expansions that we have planned. Next slide, please. So then we get into the actual project. Project 3A, I have this split into two projects. It's designed in two projects. Project 3A is the first project. That's the one in front of you right now. And that's in green there on the left. And then you can see the one in red, Project 3B. But the one in green mostly entails the developed subdivisions, the ones that are fully paved out and curb and gutter. That's Oregon Mesas and Desert Mirage sections. And then some that are in the unpaved areas. You can see the gas line that runs east-west. So that's in this project as well. The line that I was telling you about earlier is on Talavera that currently gas operations has extended the stub out off of Soledad, and we have customers already ready. I do want to let you know that I get calls all the time and every day. There's Mrs. Figueroa that called me a while back and is anxious for this gas line. She's a new transplant. She came from Washington, D.C. She finally retired. This is a retirement home. And her gas bill for the month of January was $800, her propane bill. Her propane bill for the month of February was $800. And her propane bill for the month of March was $500, as she explained to me. And she wants to know when she's going to get gas because she's going to jump on. And she, as you're aware, this project, the construction costs were presented to the public out there. So those numbers are actually, and I have them right here. Our original estimates that we had, there was approximately $5,400 in construction fees that they would have to pay. But they do get the line extension credit, which is a $1,400 credit. So it ends up costing these residents out there approximately $4,000 in construction fees. So when they sign up, that $4,000 is going to be added to their bill as a new customer. But they do get an option to extend payments out for 20 years, which averages about $40 a month. So those with the large homes and that are on propane are ready and willing to pay that. They want me to hurry up, and I'm doing the best that I can, and I've instilled operations to start extending these lines to help these customers and get them off of propane and get them onto natural gas, which is going to be 8 to 10 times cheaper than what they're paying for propane. I just wanted to mention that as well. So there's also a parcel down there that I included, and Dr. Garcia can answer to that one.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Chairman, I asked Carl to map the parcel that I disclosed back in 2015, and I'm disclosing it again. It's in the next phase, but if and when the second phase is built, I'm disclosing today again that I've owned that parcel since 1997. I checked it this morning, so.
So, Dr. Garcia, I'll let you all know and disclose again, but the real thing is this project. So there's approximately 61,000 feet of 2-inch low pressure gas line that's going to be installed, 14,000 feet of 4-inch gas line that's going to be installed, and 2,300 feet of 3/4 inch low pressure line. That may be moving depending on where the customers want their meter. We did have 4 bidders. Smithco was the low bidder on this project. They were actually the contractor that installed the 4-inch gas line under Soledad Canyon. So they went after the project again. They like doing gas work with us. Therefore, the engineers provided the bid tab, and all the numbers were correct. And so basically recommending to the board that we move forward with this project. Any questions?
Comments or questions?
Carl, this is Carmichael. Just one, were you surprised any at the difference in the bid from the engineering estimate? The actual bid was quite a bit higher than the engineering estimate.
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioner Carmichael. Yeah, there is a difference, and the engineer was more likely using some of the bid items that he previously had before, but you know, it was a while since we issued that last project out. I think the largest cost that you're going to see in here is the contractors are a little leery in regards to how much landscaping they're going to have to repair in these developed areas. Remember, there's asphalt in there, and so the county didn't want us cutting any of the asphalt. So out there in those locations, the right-of-way that the county owns is about 12 feet into what we would normally see over here as private property side. So they told us, no, you get into the right-of-way outside of our pavement. And so unfortunately, a lot of the property owners out there landscaped all the way up to the curb and gutter. So we're going to have to remove and replace landscaping material. So that's a lot of the cost, and the contractor being unsure as to how much are we going to force him to put back. And we're going to videotape this whole area. I'm going to have one-on-one meetings with each neighborhood there, so we can talk about their landscape and get the contractor included with them, and start talking about the issues and giving the contractor heads up as to what's out there, and then develop that relationship between the property owners and the contractor. So that way we can get through this project and get it completed and leave the property owners happy with the work, and us not have to receive phone calls in regards to landscaping. So I think there's a few because of that.
Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Bancomo, then Commissioner Sorg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. That was super helpful to understand the context of it for a new person on the board. Immediately I was like, wait, what? This is county, right? Like, this is not in the city limits, this is county. So that I appreciated that. I guess my question is sort of around that. How are we working with the county on this? And you just touched on that a little bit, but just help me understand and sort of clarify how that's all working.
Excellent question, Commissioner Bencomo. We work with county every step of the way. They review our contracts and our documents. They reviewed the 30, 60, 90, and 100%. Basically, we have a franchise agreement with the county right now, and so our obligation is to let them review. They will issue us a permit. We don't pay for that permit. We pay for the franchise agreement, and then we receive the permits and we move forward with construction. But I met with Renee Molina several times out in the area, as well as some of the heads of the subdivisions out there. We talked about cutting the road and getting into the landscape area. And the Currys live out there, and they kind of brought everybody together, and I can really appreciate their efforts. They helped out, and a lot of the residents showed up, and we talked about big issues out there. And so, but yes, the county was included in every step of the way. And so we are expecting our permits to be turned over to us. I do have to send an agreement over to them because they are going to allow us to cut the chip sealed road. We will be, that's in Desert Mirage. I don't have access to the cursors and stuff, but it's kind of the centipede looking one on the upper
Yeah.
River Springs. So I'll be getting to cut in there across the intersection and stuff, but I did agree. It was cheaper for me to cut that instead of boring, and I agreed with them that we would end up giving them the money back to go back and re-chip that road after we leave. We'll patch it, they'll come back, and with their own forces will re-chip it. They gave me a really great price, so we agreed on that cost, and I just need to final up the paperwork, and then I'll have my permits in my hand and we can move forward. But you can see I've worked with county roads, the engineering side, and actually I've worked with the County Commissioner Reynolds out there as well. He's been included in all my meetings. I've been to a couple of his evening meetings with the association. So yeah, we've communicated a lot with the county.
Great, that's great to hear. And then with your previous map, the ones that had said yes, the ones that had said no, how do you navigate the ripping up of roads and things like that with, you know, some of the folks that said no?
So we had those kind of conversations, and a lot of them were understanding that they didn't want to stop us from serving their neighbors. And they understood that. And so there's situations, in particular, Orga Mesa, where we're going on both sides of the road to serve somebody. And they understood that. And actually, they were very open to that. I didn't get a lot of pushback or anything in regards to that. And we told them that, you know, we need to get to your neighbor, and they understood.
Great. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Sorg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Carl, for all that information so much. Well done. I have a question about energy and carbon footprint. We all know that natural gas has a much lower carbon footprint than gasoline, petroleum, but does anybody on the staff or on the commission know the difference between natural gas and propane, on which has the greater carbon footprint?
Chairman, Commissioner, I don't have that answer, but I know that Lucio Garcia, I'm not sure if he's on with us or not, he's looked at pretty extensively as well. I think carbon footprint-wise, they're probably pretty close to each other. But I can't give you the direct answer as to what it is.
That's okay.
But, you know, there is difference.
Somebody new.
Transportation of the fuel itself is the savings in carbon footprint. You're no longer sucking that fuel.
Oh, so that's a big savings there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge carbon relief. And so, I mean, being able to pipe it to someplace, it saves you a bunch on spent carbons to get it to somebody to use.
Yes. Okay. Just wanted to mention that in our sustainability plan and our greenhouse gas inventory and stuff, natural gas is a part of it. However, it's way far down the list of parts of our sectors in the economy and in our system for reducing the greenhouse gases. So someday we'll be dealing with it, but not very soon. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let me add to that. The efforts of the utility, the activities of the utility are part of the larger context of the city's sustainability efforts, and we need to have a chance to discuss those larger contexts, and we will put that off until a more opportune time. we'd like to have a work session, but the novel coronavirus may delay that longer than we want. Any other comments or questions on this resolution? Ready for a vote? Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
Commissioner Baumgart,
Yes.
Commissioner Bencomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
and Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
And the chair, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
The next resolution is Resolution 1920 LCU 018, a resolution recommending to the Las Cruces City Council to write-off of uncollectible utility accounts receivable for fiscal year 2014 in the amount of $384,838.63.
Move to approve.
Thank
Second.
you. Okay, that was Sorg and Archuleta. Discussion.
Mr. Provencio?
Deputy Director of Services. Resolution 19-20-LCU 018 is the annual write-off of collectibles. We as a utility, along in conjunction with council on their end for uncollectible write-offs, do this on an annual basis. And the information there provides and presents the progress that we have made and where we're at currently and where we are with fiscal year 2014. This is the recommendation which we'll forward to the Treasury Department, who will then take their activities for uncollectibles, present it to council, formal adoption and approval. Stand by for any questions you may have. Oh, one more point. Again, this is writing off uncollectible balances that does not, we still continue to provide all due diligent efforts to collect any uncollectible balances that we encounter with any of our customers. But we still continue to make sure that we do all best efforts to collect unpaid bills and unpaid utility balances for the department. Stand by for questions.
Yeah, Johnson, do we have any idea after write-off what sort of percentage we eventually get to collect on these, or is that pretty small?
Chairman Commissioner Johnson, after the write-off, there will still be continued activity, but it's at a very, very small level. I don't have that number. We'd have to look for the activity after the write-off. But what it does address is that this effort continues well after the write-off, and I would venture to say that value or that balance would be very small.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other comments or questions? After 5 years, why that bird has flown. Ready for a vote. Commissioner Sorg,
Yes.
Commissioner Baumgart,
Yes.
Commissioner Bencomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael,
Yes.
and Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
And the chair, yes. Thank you all. Next resolution is Resolution 1920 LCU 022. Resolution approving the amended memorandum of understanding between the City of Las Cruces and Casa de Peregrinos, assisting in dispersing funds for utility assistance for city utilities customers who meet the eligibility requirements established by Las Cruces Utilities. A motion to approve.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second. So that was Johnson and Becomo.
No, Sorg.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Discussion.
Chairman, Commissioners, again, this is Jose Provencio, Deputy Director, Business Services. Resolution 19-220-LCU-022 is the amended memorandum of understanding between the city and the Casa de Peregrinos. We brief you on their activity and their assistance every month in terms of providing our customers assistance in paying their utility bill. This amended MOU just renews the terms and conditions, and Casa de Peregrinos works very closely with billing and receivables to disperse the funds and assist us with reviewing the eligibility requirements established by the department. It's a very essential agreement, and we're renewing it for the next phase.
Any comments or questions?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, can I add a comment?
Please.
Provencio can correct me, but another advantage of going, the advantage of going through CDP is that our customers in need can also have access to other funds and other charitable contributions, others and private sources or churches when we go through CDP. So the customer has not only the benefit of what the council allocates, but other potential help. So.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Ready for a vote? Commissioner Sorg.
Yes.
Commissioner Baumgart.
Yes.
Commissioner Bencomo.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Carmichael.
Yes.
Commissioner Archuleta.
Aye.
And the chair, yes. Thank you all. That concludes the resolutions. The next item is old business.
Mr. Chairman, staff has a couple of things. Just to brief the board that the solid waste rate review in front of council is tabled till July 20th. In the wastewater development fee allocations that you all approve, I mean, you all saw in work session, but we need to take to council. That's going to be probably a work session in August. The next item is you all recommended the financing of certain capital projects for fiscal year 21, as well as the performance contract with Johnson Controls. You all approved the contract contingent upon council funding. City Council approved the first read and of the ordinance and the application to the Finance Authority at a prior meeting. But on Monday, we hope the council approves the ordinance on this final read of that funding, so that we would have access to approximately 13.9 million for water wastewater capital improvements and 9.4 million for the guaranteed performance contract with Johnson Controls. Once the council approves, of course, NMFA has to issue the bonds and do the financing. So we will not see the funding till probably late June, and then it goes into the city budget sometime in July. So that's the plan for now.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's it from staff on all business.
Okay, new business.
The only thing I was going to suggest on new business, but is Ms. Walsh already talked about the return to work plan, but I think the board should receive a copy of that plan, so we will send it to you, so you'll have access to that.
Thank you. The next item is board's general discussion, and I'm going to go first. This is Stephen Baumgart's last session as a board member. He has served us long and well, and it has been both a privilege and a pleasure to work with him. And we're going to miss his expertise, his background, his thoughtfulness, and whoever tries to fill those shoes is going to have a real job. We do have a Nambe plaque to present to him, and I'll hold it up so that nobody can see it. And it says, Stephen Baumgart, Commissioner, November 2012 to May 2020, in appreciation for your service and dedication to the Utilities Department and our citizens. Las Cruces Utilities Board of Commissioners. And we will get that delivered to Steve. In the normal course of events, of course, we would repair to the front lobby for cake, but that won't work today. But again, we are sending you our thanks and well wishes. Do you want to say anything?
I've enjoyed my time on the board, and it's regrettable that I have to get off the board, but it was an enjoyable experience. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Steve. We'll miss you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Steve.
Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, other board general discussion. We are looking forward to a meeting in June. The odds are that it will be a Zoom-based meeting. I don't think we'll try and have a work session associated with that. We will look forward to an electronic communication in June 11th. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Commissioner Archuleta, I'm going to be traveling. There's a good chance that when I return on the 3rd of June, the governor will lock me up for 2 weeks, which will leave you to chair the meeting. We'll see how it goes, but that's the expectation. We'll see you on the 11th.
Okay.
Thank you.